Hey everyone, and welcome to Module 2. I'm going to get us started with a short little lecture on chapter 1 and chapter 2. Hopefully you read over chapter 1 relatively short, right? Just provided a little bit of an overview of what we're going to get into for the rest of the semester and allowed Dr. Corey, to present himself and his approach to counseling and therapy. He's a very well-respected, renowned counselor in our field. He has written lots of different textbooks and workbooks, instruction manuals. He's got a ton of different videos out there. You will probably be using his group text that he and his wife have had out for ages that I used whenever I went through the master's program and revisited again whenever I went through my doc program. But he has been around for a long time, and this is one of the better textbooks, I think, and that is geared towards master's level students in presenting counseling theories and techniques. And I think the text really does an adequate job at providing a wide range of theoretical orientations that are presented. Dr. Corey does a really good job at getting into each one of them. Each chapter, as chapter 1 indicated, each chapter is going to have these kind of case vignettes going of Gwen and Stan. I encourage you to read over those just so you get a better understanding of, how the theory can be approached and how you can use it with different client populations and with these two particular clients as you kind of follow them through the chapters. But we really aren't going to be doing any dedicated assignments on either one of those case studies. Of course, we're not using the videos that are associated with this text because I think that would have been an extra cost, and why make you pay for something that I could find when I can find things for free out there on the internet. With that being said, this video that I have linked in Module 2 associated with Chapter 2 is Dr. Corey talking about Chapter 2 and being a professional counselor and what that means and our values and our beliefs and evaluating that. I hope the video works. If for some reason it doesn't, let me know. I provided all the links possible, I think, that are out there. It goes through the library, so that Alexander Street website, we'll be using it a couple of times to access videos for this course. So you just go into the library's website and you might have to log in. Doing it outside the off campus, you have to log in using your credentials and whatnot. So let me know if for some reason it doesn't work. I'll try to get you linked up to it. I can say that it doesn't work for me in my current office. I've moved myself into my basement, and so it does require, I think, a good connection to the internet, however you are connected. So with that being said, that's Chapter 1. Again, really relatively short, quick review of what the textbook has to offer. As far as Chapter 2 goes, I'm not going to go into great detail. Hopefully you'll be able to access Dr. Corey's lecture that he gave, or presentation that he gave at a conference. It is a little lengthy, I will say that. Hang in there, hang tight with those videos, though I think they are useful. But, I think for this class, there are a couple key points that I wanted to make as we kind of embark into Chapter 2 and looking at you as a counselor, a future counselor, looking at the role of counselors in general. It's one thing to go out and say, hey, I'm practicing counseling. I'm working towards my LPC. I have this graduate degree. Part of what our job as educators is to be gatekeepers for you all at this point, at this stage. And so you take these certain courses at specific times because we want you to be prepared before you ever talk to an actual human being about things. And so what you are doing is building competency, and you're developing as a counselor in training right now, and will hopefully leave our program as a novice counselor who's received a good amount of training, but is consistently and constantly working towards becoming a more effective counselor, okay? So, we do put a lot of focus and attention on self-care. I can't, go any further in this semester without really acknowledging how important that is right now for all of us, self-included here. We're all living through a pandemic for the first time. It is unique to our situation right now. And so I really do encourage you to take time for yourselves as we go through the semester. Step away from life in whatever way you possibly can. Take some of those moments of solidarity or connect with others. I think a lot of times we put focus on getting some alone time and being, able to just kind of sit peacefully and quietly. For me right now, all I want is just to be around friends, and I can't be. And so, whatever way we can connect with others, and have a nice balance between a social life and your school and your family and whatever else is pulling you in different directions right now. It is important. Because if you are not taking care of yourself, there's no way that you could be taking care of somebody else, and that will transcend into your practice later on. We do put a ton of focus. I try to consistently do this in all my classes, but on using evidence-based practices, okay? And so you're going to hear that term from me probably a lot this semester, and I want you guys to get into the habit of using that terminology, okay, and presenting yourselves as students who have knowledge around therapeutic approaches, theoretical orientations, what that means. This is much more than like a Psych 101 class, okay, even though we are going to briefly cover people like Freud and Adler. We're going to be talking a lot more in depth about these theoretical orientations. So I don't want to hear from any of you that you are into talk therapy. Like, God, what is that? That's nothing. So I want you to really start using your language, using the language of the text, starting to reframe your understanding of theories and why we use them, why we adhere to them, why we pick one or two. You can even see in Dr. Corey's text, he outlines that these are, we take some more existential approach to his work with clients, and gives reasons for that. So you have to be very critical of yourself. You have to evaluate what feels comfortable to you, what might feel natural versus unnatural. Use some of these techniques when you're doing those role plays. Try them out, see how it feels. That's the purpose of this class. We try to do our best to replicate what might be going on in a classroom setting by doing the role plays that we have you do, but it still can be a little bit difficult and tricky. So try these things out. Right now is the time to practice. But, what you have to just keep in mind the entire time is that you're going to be practicing from some type of orientation. It's like a roadmap. It's like the foundation of the work that you're going to be doing. You're not just going out there and flippantly working with somebody. That's why I don't like that term, talk therapy. You have to have a roadmap. You have to have a guide, and it might look like something different now than it did whenever that theorist, 100 years ago developed it, but we're still working from some type of orientation. And along with those orientations come the techniques and come the ways that we set goals for clients, the way that we hope to see clients change and achieve whatever it is that they're wanting to achieve by coming to see you. A huge part of becoming an effective counselor and continuing to maintain our competence is critically evaluating our values, our belief systems, and our level of competence and working with the client population that we're working with. Right now, you're students, and so don't be too critical of yourselves. You are developing competence. We are asking you to evaluate your values. We are asking you to help to better understand how you might manage conflicts between yourself and what might happen with a client when you have a client that's a different background from you, that has different political belief system from you, that maybe is from a different age group, cultural, ethnic background, whatever it might be. So you have to be open to evaluating yourself as a student, of course, with our help and direction, but also as a clinician later on. And that's something that continues throughout somebody's professional career. You have to continue to critically evaluate your values and beliefs and make sure that whatever those values and beliefs are, don't seep into those relationships that you have with clients, or don't skew the way that you perceive the issues that they're bringing to you. So I put into this module additional information on a multicultural competence, a web page that has a number of self-assessments. I encourage you to take at least one of them just to see where you land and start to think about, what you might do to develop your competence, develop your cultural competence as a clinician, what areas are lacking, how you see yourself working with diverse populations. So, again, I'm not going to be grading you on whether or not you take a self-assessment, but I really hope you actually do select one of the ones that are out there and use it. I've also put a good number of competencies within this module that you can review as well. So, and one thing that I do like to point out, because I know that a lot of you had the cultural issues course over the summer. Some of you maybe aren't there yet, but so there's a need ethically for every counselor to be practicing within their scope of competence, right? And for every counselor to be culturally competent. Hopefully that's not a surprise to any of you at this point. There's a difference between the need for every counselor, regardless of what theoretical orientation you pick, regardless of what techniques you're using, regardless of what assessments you might be reviewing with a client. So there's a need for every single counselor that's practicing to be multiculturally competent. So that's why you have the cultural issues course, and that's why we ingrain or weave it in through every single class that you have. But then you'll learn later on in the semester, there are counselors that consider themselves and practice from a multiculturally based theoretical orientation, okay? And so every counselor needs to be multiculturally competent, but only some counselors might opt to be using these, the theoretical orientations, the theories that have been developed and are founded on a kind of a more cultural basis. So we'll learn about those down the road, but I just like to point that out, that, yes, you might see on the course syllabus and the course schedule that we're going to be talking about multicultural theoretical orientations. That's a little bit different than being multiculturally competent. And I think that kind of wraps up everything that I really wanted to cover. Corey lists a ton of issues that, you as a novice budding counselor may need to be considering at this point. Please don't let that overwhelm you. Again, this is a period of growth for you all. I'm not expecting perfection whenever I watch role plays and videos. I am expecting progress, right? So I would hope that from the first video that I watch and from the first role play that you do and reflect on, that there is improvement consistently throughout the rest of the semester. But I think there are things that that Corey does point out that are really useful. Again, the perfectionism thing. We don't all have to be perfectionists at this point. That's hard for me to say, and I'm a perfectionist myself. But self-disclosure, that's one that's difficult for novice counselors to really to wrap their heads around. How much do I self-disclose? Do I self-disclose at all? How do I deal with clients that maybe are presenting as being more resistant? How do I learn to use these techniques? How do I see myself as a counselor? How do I share responsibility with a client? You never want to be doing more work than the client is doing. But what does that actually look like in practice? Finding that balance between using the tools and the techniques and theoretical orientation versus what we're kind of used to in dealing with our friends and family and giving advice. A lot of times that's what brought us to the professional counseling in the first place, because people like to talk to us and divulge things and we like to give advice. But that's different than the counselor-client relationship and what that actually should look like. So I think, it's good that Corey points these things out. But again, have to emphasize the need for self-care, especially right now in this day and age. And know your limits. I think that's so incredibly important right now. Know your limits. Know when you've pushed yourself too far. The one thing that I have learned that over the past seems like forever, but it's only been like 6 months, over the past 6 months, is that if I am on more than one Zoom call a day, I am done. My brain just stops functioning, and so I have to be be a little bit easier with myself on those days when I'm stuck on calls and I'm stuck on Zoom calls, that probably could have been done via email, but you have to just know your limits, and they might be new limits now than they ever were before. So you might have to reestablish some of those boundaries, and like I said, find connections where you can. I think maybe after all of this, we'll be just experts at self-care if things ever go back to the way that they, or remotely to the way that they were before. Maybe we'll all have learned some techniques to really care for ourselves after we've gone through it. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys to check out some of the resources that I have. Hopefully the video of Dr. Corey works for you. And then I will be back within the next part of the module to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is ethics.